strangest and most poignant interaction I ever had with Shane MacGowan was at an Irish Voice benefit in Terry Dunn's club, Tramps on 8th Street in 1992. Anybody ever in?
Yeah.
It was a great club. It was before Black 47 had signed a record deal, yet we were doing well at the time, playing 4 or 5 nights a week. So in many ways, it was just another gig to us at first. We had done our sound check when the late Jerry Conway, a comrade and Guildford phone member, asked me if Black 47 would back Shane for 5 or 6 songs. I instantly declined. As none of the band, none of Black 47, including myself, were really familiar with the Pogues' repertoire. This was a big gig for Shane, I emphasized. His first since leaving the Pogues, and I didn't want to be responsible for messing it up. Shane was an icon in New York, to my mind, and he deserved something better than a band that didn't have a clue about his body of work. Besides, who wanted to be ripped apart by Shane's fans and the Irish media for sabotaging his comeback? Mr. Jerry Conway, on the other hand, having spent 12 years in British prisons on a false charge, was nothing if not a resolute negotiator. He was also a great friend of mine, and he persuaded me that the least I could do was come down the street where Shane was drinking and have a chat and a drink with the man. Terry George, then Irish music editor, later director of Hotel Rwanda, was there, along with Joey Cashman, the infamous Joey Cashman, Shane's manager, and Victoria Clark, Shane's ravishing and beautiful partner. Not a trifling. Shane himself was very quiet, as is often the case with Shane. I remember thinking, Jesus Christ, this guy hasn't made any arrangements for a backing band that he's going on in an hour. I also recall various kindnesses that the Pogues family had shown to Black 47, but still I could see a disaster in the making. Jerry again asked me, this time in front of Shane, if I'd help. I replied that the only Pogue song I knew the chords for was Dirty Old Town. Shane stared long and hard, as if trying to bring me into focus, before declaring in his broad London accent, "Don't want to do any fucking Pogue songs." This caused much consternation. But Shane was adamant and didn't appear to give a fiddler's fart one way or the other. But I instantly saw a way forward. How about if we do 5 or 6 Irish ballads that we all know? Fucking right! Shane exclaimed, as if I'd just come up with a very succinct and plausible explanation of the theory of relativity. Thereupon we sketched out songs of the ilk of Black Velvet Band, the Wild Rover, the Irish Rover, and any other kind of fucking rover. Jerry had already told Jerry Conway that he had Seamus Egan on banjo ready to go, and Mary Courtney on vocals. I rushed back to Tramps, recruited Black 47 members, Chris Byrne on pipes, David Conrad on bass, and Thomas Hammond on drums, all of whom felt at the worst this would be an adventure. Shane, about a half an hour late, arrived from a soiree at the bar down the street, and we lashed into a sound check. To my utter amazement, the whole thing sounded fucking great. The band swung, and Shane was in top form. Talk about exuding a sigh of relief. It was a long night, of bands, many speeches, and then Black 47 played a long set. Shane would close it out blind. You could cut a knife through the excitement. Backstage, I gave him a set list such as a box with 6 songs, but he motioned it away. You just call. He mumbled, and for the first time I could tell that this thing was about to spiral out of control. Shane had thought he was just coming out to do a couple of songs, no big fucking deal, but everyone else saw it in far more dramatic terms. Terry George at that moment was on stage rattling off a litany of Shane's accomplishments that likened what was about to unfold as up there with the second coming. And in the bargain, driving the crowd to a frenzy. Not before Terry brought us on stage, but to my surprise, the stage was already occupied by a number of other musicians. Some of whom I was familiar with, others I didn't know from a hole in the wall. One of them had even appropriated my microphone and pushed him the fuck out of the crowd was howling so much it was impossible to communicate with the new arrivals. Then all of a sudden, I could feel it. Shane was standing behind me, cigarette in hand. Shades so dark I couldn't tell if he could even see the ground beneath his feet, let alone the chaos that he was inspiring. I caught the eyes of my buddies from the soundcheck band. Now that they were all on stage, all apprehension fled, and they looked as if they could have subbed for the orchestra on the Titanic. And then on a count of 4, we were off and into the Black Velvet Band. The crowd roared its approval, and we were away in a canter. About halfway through, I could tell there was something really wrong. One of the new guitarists was playing in the key of D rather than the key of G. Oh. He looked at me in amazement when I somewhat graphically suggested that he change his fucking tune and get off the fucking stage. Shane was beginning to feel a bit of wear and tear himself. As the lead vocal monitor waxed and waned, probably because the sound man was trying to come to terms with some of the feedback being caused by the instruments of the uninvited musicians. There was also the problem of keeping pitch with the backing guitar streaming through the side-filled monitors in varying keys. As far as the crowd was concerned, however, we could be playing in some Mongolian microtonality. They were there to see their hero, and whatever his backing musicians played was hardly of great moment. Around the 4th song,